most of these are in that e-packet of resources that we shared, but I'm just going to call a few of them out here. Some very hardcore, detailed technical references that are available as free PDFs are this Global Soil Biodiversity Atlas. And then in the center, this report on the state of knowledge of soil biodiversity. And then in contrast to those, on the right is this lovely book, Life in the Soil by Jim Nardi. That again is the scientist and illustrator who's such a good communicator. This is a book that's great for any, like it says, naturalist or gardener there, with wonderful illustrations to support the concepts. There also was this huge symposium a few years ago, and so many resources and recordings from this Soil Biodiversity Symposium are online at this website. Other things that we have in that e-packet of resources, we have a Xerces section, we have an NRCS section. Only a few of those are called out. Kelly talked about some of them, but again, there's more in the active links in the document. If you just love looking at these amazing animals and learning about them, this personal website and blog called A Chaos of Delight focuses on a lot of things like springtails, like the one pictured here. Many of them are from animals that live in Australia or New Zealand, but there's so many beautiful pictures and information about them. It's one I just like to let people know about. Another organization with a lot of web resources is the Global Soil Biodiversity Initiative, shown here and there with their logo. And then two of Anna's manuals here, the one she mentioned, the Urban Soil Guide, which is a great kind of textbook, but that's very practical. And then also a much shorter and concise and direct publication, this how-to guide for minimizing heavy metal contamination in urban gardens. We've referenced this handbook several times. These are the different ways you can access it. Xerces also has this Soil Life landing page on our website as a good hub to start at. And our Farming with Soil Life, we have past series that were not focused on urban topics, and today's will be added to this. So that's a whole playlist on Xerces YouTube. And then if you want to get in touch with us, by email, soils@xerces.org. When we talked a little bit about how to interpret these soil invertebrates that you see, what are they telling us about the soil health, the system there? So we have a pocket guide to soil invertebrates as bioindicators, and then very specific to urban soils and a lot of the topics that Stephanie Steele presented. Forthcoming quite soon, we have a pocket ID guide to invertebrates of urban soils, and that is going to be available in both English and Spanish. I walked us through the soil scouting guide here, so that's a good guide to know about. And we also have similar ones for foliage scouting and flower scouting, and several other ones if you're interested more in beneficial insects, so you kind of know what there is to know and manage about pollinators, but want to understand a little more about the other bugs that are fun to see and attract and provide habitat for. These are several good references for that. And finally, I'd like to wrap things up here with this quote that the soils of our yards, gardens, and fields swarm with thousands of kinds of minute animals and plants, of which we know little or nothing. We totally depend on the soil for our very existence, and yet the soil we daily tread underfoot is almost a veritable terra incognita. This was true in 1914 when it was published, and although we understand a little bit more today, there's still so much more to learn and be aware of. Thanks again once more to North Central SARE for funding this curriculum and the short course. And thank you to my colleagues, Kelly Gill and Stephanie Steele, and our guest presenter, Dr. Anna Paltseva. And with that, we have time to get to the questions that are already in the Q&A, as well as anything new. Let me get some things pulled up here again, please. Bear with me. All right. So anything new in the chat? Some thank yous. Yep. All right, I'm going to focus on the Q&A. And again, some of these go back a lot earlier to the other presentations. I've acquired a newly made vacant lot next door to me that I will use for urban farming. So it had severely dilapidated 1900s brick house on it that was raised. And then the foundation was largely backfilled with rubble from the house as well as dirt. How do I help establish, if not encourage, a soil ecosystem on this lot with these circumstances? Who would like to answer this one?
I could start.
Great.
I would definitely recommend like soil testing. As Anna really kind of highlighted at the end. It's particularly important with working in our urban soils, both to know more about the chemistries of the soils, but then also the heavy metals or other contaminants. So I feel like that is recommended. I think I'm also maybe a little clarification. Does it sound like the foundations and everything were just, you said it was backfilled onto the site and all those materials were left, and if that's the case, perhaps like opting more for like raised beds could be a good idea. Might also consider where the historical like yards were on this site, and perhaps those could be good places for in-ground plantings. Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else?
Thank you, Stephanie. I think that's very good. You've got both how do you deal with the substrate, how do you deal with any possible contamination, and then how do you get the plants there, and then hopefully encouraging the animals to come as well. Next question. I know that praying mantises are introduced species where I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I recently relocated here from North Carolina. I was worried I'd brought them with me, but I discovered they've been here a long time and they're not considered invasive. Is this true? Should I be concerned about them hunting other species that we need? Is there anything we should do about them? I love them, but if they need dealing with, I'll do it. Yeah, we have, depending on where you are in the United States, there are some native praying mantises, but there are also some introduced species that typically are larger than the native ones. So that is one reason why they're more commonly observed, as well as being fairly widespread. Praying mantises are pretty indiscriminate predators. If you move and they can eat you, they they may hunt you. This is a tricky one. I really appreciate this question because it does help us again look at things where there's a native version and a non-native version, and some of the choices that we're making, right? Why is one necessarily desirable and the other is not? There are good reasons for that, but in this case, I think if you were just really trying to control the non-native ones, they're so widespread, it's hard to ever get rid of them. And getting rid of them isn't necessarily going to mean that the native ones refill that niche in their place. So yeah, my answer is I appreciate the awareness there, but I don't have a recommendation to do anything. Anyone have something to add to that?
I'll just add some of these predatory insects are available for purchase and release and used as a form of biological control. And so just not introducing praying mantids or other insects, especially those, even if they're native, some are harvested from the wild. And so being very conscientious about that, oftentimes, like what Stephanie said, you were releasing these praying mantids, for example, but they're not actually targeting your pest problem. They're eating a variety of things.
I'll just briefly also add, I think that they're referring to the Carolina mantis, where it sounds like they're from North Carolina and maybe moving more northwards to Wisconsin, where I think their range is expanding. Like I know where I am in Detroit, isn't their historical range, but in recent years, some of the Carolina mantis, there's been more observations of them. And so, yeah, I think their range is currently expanding.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for interpreting it that way. I think that's the correct interpretation, Stephanie. Thank you. Another question is beekeeping helpful or harmful in all of this? Thoughts about that from anyone?
Did we include our new fact sheet as a resource? Uh, the keeping honeybees that Matthew did, that could be helpful for this question. The question was, is it harmful?
Is it helpful or harmful?
Is it helpful or harmful?
In relation to what we're talking about with soil health and soil invertebrates.
Yeah. I think this is a little complicated. There are definitely ways where honeybee colonies, especially the very large scale and kind of like migratory movement of them with our big ag, that has some complications. There's also definitely some amount of resource competition between honeybees and our native bees or other species, as well as diseases that could be spread. Yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. We definitely need more resources for our pollinators. And so at times in urban areas, maybe there is higher levels of floral diversity or maybe more like introduced species that could support them. I don't know, somebody else. But we should also put a link in the chat for that resource. I can go try and find it.
That'd be great, Steph. Thank you for doing that. Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to put that in the chat, that publication.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, another question. Are there any good tracking methods that correlate soil habitats and invertebrates that exist that would help us monitor urban soil health in our communities? Any information or ideas would be helpful and much appreciated. Yeah, this was something I did half answer earlier, because then I talked about the pocket guide to soil invertebrates as bioindicators. So I think this has been answered unless any of you want to add anything.
I am just thought, have you tested, have you used a microbiometer? It's a probe that is used. It's to realize, like, it measures microbial activity. It doesn't tell you like big fauna, but just something to, for those people who like to do little testing. Microbiometer is something I use in my classes of like teaching. It's very easy to do within like 20 minutes. With a smartphone, you need to scan a card that you will have to drop the solution with your soil. But another form of indicators of life is, I think, by testing it yourself. I can I'll share the link for that. It's not advertising for them. I don't work for them, but it's just something I used in my own classes, and I think it's cool for like do it yourself.
Yeah, a lot of the quantifiable methods that are available are for some proxy of microbial activity, like they're measuring respiration. You can get a soil sample, kind of, dissolve it all up and then look at the DNA and kind of map that to which fungi or bacteria are there and in what abundance or proportions. This sounds like it's a much more simple and affordable tool to
Yes.
use. Yeah. Yeah.
So I shared it for those who want to check it.
But yeah, with invertebrates, aquatic macroinvertebrates are really great indicators for water quality. And as I mentioned, this is more of an emerging area of work and understanding with the terrestrial soil invertebrates. All right, there's one more active question in the Q&A. If I'm doing raised garden beds, what can I do to optimize the space in between the beds? I feel like I usually see gravel or mulch. I feel like grass would be nice to feel below my feet, but I don't want it to steal nutrients from my crops. I'm also wondering how I could optimize for overall soil health and soil ecosystem health, and I'm not sure that gravel would really help with this.
Well, I think the wood mulch would be good. Right? You can pick different sizes, different sources, but would be a good alternative for it for sure.
Right, that's a good, it's not a living plant, it's also not gravel, it's something in between there. Cardboard, if you have access to it, or clean straw, those are other organic options. Do any of you have like pros or cons of those relative to wood mulch?
Maybe just I don't know how much convenience it would be to walk, right? They said like the walking is a thing, so maybe straw would be a little better, but it might break down quicker. It's also need to look at like moisture and how much to water to maintain it, because it might be too dry and blow away. If it's too wet, it creates a fungi. So sometimes it's also just playing and experimenting what works for people, but yeah, those are good alternatives as well.
Right, whatever you may have that's accessible, easy to get, easy to move, easy to work with, less expensive, among those organic matter choices.
I think those are like most common ones that I've seen is straw or mulch.
Yeah. Yep. All right, that gets us through all of the Q&A. We've got a few more. One comment I just want to pull out from the chat. I had my soil tested and qualified for raised bed grant reimbursement through NRCS. That's a great story to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Anna was absolutely amazing. Yeah, lots of thank yous. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, Anna. And we'll wrap things up here then, since nothing else is coming through. Thank you again, everyone who has attended. Please reach out if you have further questions and take advantage of the resources we've shared. And again, we'll be following up with an email that has the recording for this. And as you leave, there'll be a evaluation that pops up. If you're able to complete that, we really appreciate it. And as a thank you, you have the option to enter in a giveaway to get a book like Farming with Soil Life or some of the other titles that Xerces provides. So thank you again, everyone. Take care and have fun with the soil. Love the soil.
Yes, happy spring.
Happy spring.